Morning Year 2, welcome to Tuesday's literacy lesson, where today we'll be creating a story map for our focus text on Grandma Bird. Today you will need a pencil, you'll need your colouring pencils to make your story map lovely and colourful and beautiful, and also your home learning book if you would like to complete your story map on there, or you could use some plain paper and draw your story map yourself. So you can pause the video now to collect any resources that you need. So for our SPAG starter this week, we have been focusing on antonyms. Now an antonym is a word that has the different meaning, which means the opposite. So fast and slow, gigantic and tiny, happy and sad, brilliant and horrendous are all antonyms because they are words that mean the complete opposite. So your challenge today is to find and match all of the missing antonyms into the correct boxes. So here we have the first word is tiny. Now remember, an antonym are all words that mean the opposite. So the opposite of tiny would be big. So you need to find all the words that would mean big. In this box, the word is cold. So the antonym, the opposite of cold would be hot. So put in all the words that mean the opposite of cold in that box. And in the final box is the word beautiful, and the opposite, the antonym of beautiful, may be ugly, horrible. So you would find all the words that mean the opposite of beautiful and put them in those boxes. Now you can draw the table in your home learning book, or you can just list them as little subtitles, however you wish to do that. So if you pause the video now and see if you can match all the antonyms into the correct box. Brilliant, let's see if you matched and correctly matched all of the antonyms. So the first word is hot. Hot is an antonym of cold, so I've put that in the cold box. Ugly is an antonym, the opposite of beautiful. Huge is an antonym of tiny, so huge goes in the tiny box. Then we're on to ginormous. Ginormous is the opposite of tiny, so it's an antonym of tiny. Boiling, if something's boiling, it's really hot, so it goes in the antonym of cold. Horrible looks awful, really not great, so horrible would be an antonym of beautiful. Gigantic is another word for big, and huge, so would go in the tiny box because it's the opposite of tiny. Unattractive, it's not something very nice to look at, so unattractive is an antonym of beautiful. Enormous is really big, a really powerful word to use instead of big, so enormous is an antonym of tiny. And finally, scorching, if something is scorching hot, is extremely hot, another powerful word for hot, so scorching would be an antonym of cold. So well done you two. For everyone that you've got right, make sure you give yourself a fabulous tick and fantastic on your brilliant hard work. Okay, so our challenge for literacy today is to create a detailed story map, so using pictures to represent the story of Grandma Bird. Now when we are doing this, we need to think about the characters who are in the story, and we're drawing pictures only to represent the important events. We don't need to draw every single illustration that was in the book, only breaking out each picture that represents important events that happen to give an overview of the structure of the story. When we've done that, we're then going to be adding important vocabulary onto the story map to help just picture and really capture those really powerful words. So what we're going to do is we can watch the story again to help refresh our memory, ready to draw such a detailed story map. Here is the story of Grandma Bird by Benji Davies. Noy lived with his dad and 6 cats by the sea. It was summer and Noy was going to stay at Grandma's. It was a long way to Grandma's house. She lived by herself on a tiny rock where the wind cut in and the grass grew sideways. The only visitors were the birds who blew in and out on the breeze. Noi wasn't sure about Grandma. She boiled up seaweed for soup and kept her teeth in a jar. At night they had to sleep top to tail. The blankets were itchy and Grandma snored like an old walrus. During the day, Grandma always seemed to be too busy with one thing or another, and she never had time to play. So one morning, when the tide was out, Noi crept away. He hopped from rock to rock and pattered over wet sand. He dipped in and out of rock pools. Then he spotted something shimmering across the sand. It was a great big rock full of holes. Noi weaved in and out and skipped around its edges. It was a castle, a tall ship, a smuggler's den. It was the barnacled back of an ancient whale. Outside, the sky swirled black and grey. A storm was brewing. Noi listened as the sea thrashed against the rocks and rain began trickling down the walls. Suddenly, with a flutter and a squawk, something tumbled out of the storm and landed in Noi's cave. It was a little bird, and it didn't look well. The tiny bird shivered in Noi's hands. He knew he must do something, and quickly. Maybe Grandma would know what to do. The tide had come in, and it was hard to find a path across the rocks. Noi hopped, jumped, and leapt with all his might, but the storm blew him left and right. Noi wondered how he would ever make it back to Grandma's. When suddenly, a sail came cutting across the sea. "Grandma!" shouted Noi. "I've got you!" cried Grandma as she scooped them aboard. "Thank goodness I found you," she said. Grandma had started searching for Noi as soon as she heard the storm. As they sailed home, Noi and Grandma found more of the windswept birds. "They must have been on a long journey together," said Grandma. The house was soon full of chatter and the ruffle of drying wings. Once the storm had passed, the birds went on their way. Only Noi's bird didn't. He didn't want to leave. "I think he likes you," said Grandma. Noi wondered if Grandma ever felt lonely, living out here by herself. They spent the rest of the summer together, exploring every rock and shore. And Grandma's bird came too. Okay, so now we're going to start creating our story map together. Now you can either do this by using the template that is on Seesaw and downloading this and printing it off, or if you're using any plain paper or your home learning book, it's really simple to do your own story map. So just starting at the beginning and just drawing a nice swirl, like so, onto your paper, a bit like a backward S. Just making sure you're leaving enough space around your story map line so that you can draw all your pictures and your keywords. So if you need to pause the video to create your story map outline, you can do so now. So to start mine, I'm going to add my title at the top, which is Grandma Bird. And really important because that's her name, that she has capital letters for both Grandma and Bird. Then I'm going to start at the beginning of the story. So we've got the main character Noi, who lived with his dad and his 6 cats. So I could draw a picture of Noi, who had his little like hoodie snood on. So this could be Noi. And I know your pictures will be much better than mine. But here is Noi, and he had a little bucket. So there's his bucket, and I can write Noi. And a little cat. And I could even put times 6, he's got 6 cats. And he lived with his dad, and he went on a boat, so I'm going to draw the boat. All the way to his grandma's house. So here's Noi on the boat, and the sea, to Grandma's house, where he was going to stay for the summer. So I could even draw a big sunshine to show that it's going to be summer while he's there. So, and I could even write the key word is summer for the whole of summer. And when he were on his boat, it took a long way to get to Grandma's house. So you could even draw something to represent a long way or a long time. So you could draw a clock. And it taken a long time to get to Grandma's house. And when he got to Grandma's house, she lived by herself on a rock where the wind cut in and the grass grew sideways. So I could draw Grandma's house on a big rock with the sea around it, the door and the roof on Grandma's house, and the birds around Grandma's house where it's really windy, and even the little pier that comes off and Noi arriving at Grandma's house. So what you can do is pause the video, complete your story map. Don't forget to add your key vocabulary. You might think of some really exciting words to add there, and you can even colour it in too. Now don't forget, when you finish your story map, we can't wait to see them. So don't forget to upload it onto Seesaw so that we can see your fantastic story maps.